Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. Metal feet struck the tunnel ceiling above them, each impact shaking dust into Selin's hair. Beside her, the human pressed one finger to his lips while a red scanning beam slid across the floor less than a meter from their boots. Selin held her breath until her chest burned. The machine paused. Then the footsteps moved on. Only after the vibration faded did Caleb Rock lower his hand. In the dark, his face was little more than a pale shape beside the covered lantern. "That was too close," he whispered. Selin's pulse still hammered in her ears. She had known Veer hunters since childhood. They did not search once and leave. They returned with larger machines, heavier weapons, and fewer questions. Hours earlier, she had believed the human beside her would be the creature she needed to fear most. She had been wrong. When Selin first opened her eyes in the ash dunes of Karen 9, she saw boots beside her blood. Blue droplets glowed against the black sand. Heat rolled across her damaged side, and every breath scraped through her chest. A shadow fell over her. Her people had taught one rule about humans more seriously than any navigation lesson. If one found you helpless, do not expect mercy. So she shut her eyes. Nothing happened. A pack hit the sand, metal clicked. Then a man's voice, rough with exhaustion, spoke from above her. "Stay still, I'm checking the wound." Selin forced her eyes open. The human had removed his helmet. Dust streaked his face. His rifle remained at his side, untouched. In his hands was a battered medical unit with mismatched seals and a cracked display. She tried to pull away. Pain stopped her. "Don't," he said. "You'll tear it wider." The white medical field touched the plasma burn along her torso. Selin hissed through her teeth. Her translator stuttered, recovered, and gave her enough language for one question. "Why haven't you killed me?" The human looked genuinely confused. "You're injured," he said. "That's the problem I'm dealing with." It was not an answer. Her upbringing had prepared her to understand. He introduced himself as Caleb Rock and kept working until the bleeding slowed. Against everything Selin knew about alien medicine, his improvised stabilizers held. Then a metallic hum drifted across the dunes. Selin's body went rigid. "Scout drone," she whispered. "Veer." Caleb glanced toward the ruins half buried beyond the ridge. "Yours." "No." That single word changed his expression. He helped her stand and guided her into the remains of an abandoned research station. Inside, rusted walls cut the sunlight into thin orange strips. Caleb covered his lantern, listened to the approaching buzz, and peered through a crack. Selin told him what the Veer did to her species. Larati mines could sense routes through unstable subspace. The Empire captured navigators and forced them to guide military fleets. The drone floated closer. Caleb examined the dead wiring, a broken battery pack, his med unit, and a roll of reflective insulation. Selin stared at him. "Those parts are useless." "Individually, probably." He built a warm decoy signal from the scraps and threw it far into the dunes. The drone turned at once, scanners locking onto the false target. Selin almost laughed from relief. Then the drone chirped. Her relief vanished. "It's transmitting." Caleb was already moving. He climbed a ruined tower, ripped open an old electrical panel, and connected a homemade jammer to cables that had not carried proper power in years. The drone stuttered as it drifted toward him. "Caleb." He waited until it crossed the tower. Then he slammed two stripped wires into the capacitor bank. A violent arc cracked through the air. The drone jerked, lost lift, and crashed into the sand. Caleb climbed down, shaking one burned hand. Selin could only stare. The Veer built machines to survive battlefields. A human scavenger had defeated one with abandoned wiring. Caleb looked at the wreck, Now they know where to look. He found an old transit map beneath the ruins. Together, they descended through a corroded hatch into the buried tunnels. That was how they reached the darkness, where the walkers passed overhead. Once the patrol moved away, Caleb turned toward Selin. They're putting a lot of effort into finding one injured navigator. Selin looked down at her hands. I wasn't escaping a crash, she said. I was escaping something I destroyed. Caleb waited. The Veer, she explained, had developed a system capable of copying the Larati neural sense for subspace. If completed, their fleets would no longer need living navigators. They could cross barriers that protected hidden colonies, independent systems, and defended borders. I destroyed the central unit, Selin said. Caleb's eyes narrowed, but you kept something. She touched the data shard, hidden against her suit. A copy. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then dust shook from the ceiling again. More walkers. Selin tightened her grip on the shard. Leave me here. If they connect you to this, they will come after human settlements too. Caleb gave her a long look. You're asking me to hand someone back to the people hunting her. I'm asking you to survive. That's not the same thing. His voice stayed quiet, but the refusal was absolute. Selin felt a crack open in the certainty she had carried all her life. Humans were supposed to be dangerous because they loved violence. Caleb was dangerous because fear had failed to move him. He studied the shard. If this map can move fleets through unstable space, it can move evacuation ships too. Selin blinked. The data was designed for conquest. Data doesn't care who uses it. A heavier tremor rolled through the tunnel. Caleb found an ancient relay junction and began forcing incompatible power cells into its dead ports. What are you doing? Making it impossible for them to bury this. The relay coughed awake. A burst signal shot into the old network, carrying a fragment of Selin's data. Not enough to reveal everything. Enough to prove it existed. Across the tunnel wall, forgotten status lights blinked on one by one. Selin stared. You sent it openly. To every channel this relic can reach. You have no idea who will receive it. That's the point. The Veer answered with force. Energy pulses swept through the tunnels, hammering Selin's implant until she nearly collapsed. Caleb shoved a foil-lined dampener against her and dragged her toward the main relay chamber while cutting beams chewed through stone behind them. The chamber doors barely closed. Seconds later, the first blast punched molten light through the entrance. Caleb drove Selin's shard into an adapter beneath the central hollow table. Star roots exploded into the air. Paths hidden for generations unfolded across the room. Selin grabbed his wrist. If you release all of it, no one can take it back. Caleb looked at the approaching glow beyond the damaged door. Neither can the Veer. Armored figures appeared through the smoke. The relay screamed. Caleb hit transmit. The full map went out. Civilian frequencies received it. Old defense relays received it. Human patrol networks received it. Independent colonies received it. The Veer fired. Caleb pulled Selin down as plasma crossed the room. He shot a support brace instead of the soldiers. Metal and stone crashed between them, buying only seconds. They ran for an emergency lift. The doors protested. The platform shook. Bolts of energy struck beneath them as the lift clawed upward through decades of rust. When it burst onto the surface, daylight hit Selin's eyes. Then she saw the sky. Ships were arriving from directions the Veer had considered impossible. Not one polished armada. Mining vessels, cargo ships, patrol craft. Old hulls with repairs visible across their flanks. They emerged from newly revealed routes and fed corrections to one another as they came. Selin stepped out of the lift and forgot her pain. They came. Caleb wiped blood from his brow. Looks that way. The Veer command formation tried to rotate toward the newcomers. It failed. Human craft appeared beside lanes that had been considered impassable. Independent ships joined them. Escape corridors once controlled by the Veer became useless. A command vessel descended through the clouds with weapons charging. A human ship struck from its blind side before it could fire. The sky flashed. Selin flinched, but Caleb was already watching the next movement. This was the moment her people's oldest belief finally broke. The humans had received a weapon-shaped advantage and spread it before anyone could claim ownership. The battle became disorder. Veer ships tried to retreat using charts that no longer gave them superiority. Some jumped into unstable regions. Others broke formation and fled by safer routes, while human ships held their positions instead of pursuing. They guarded colonies. They covered civilian exits. They protected worlds that did not belong to them. Selin stood on the ridge, one hand pressed to her sealed wound. You could control every route now, she said. Caleb gave a tired laugh. I can barely control my scanner. I mean, your people. He looked up at the mixed fleet. They'll argue about it. They'll build rules. They'll argue about those too. And the routes. They stay shared. A shuttle descended near the ruins. Human medics came first. Armed escorts followed, but every weapon pointed away from Selin. An officer approached Caleb. You're responsible for waking half the dead relays in this sector. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. Some of them. The officer looked at Selin. Caleb stepped beside her. She's a survivor. She also carried the information that stopped the Veer from owning those routes. The officer nodded once. Then nobody touches her without her consent. Selin's throat tightened. No cage. No demand. No chain around her mind. A medic held out a hand and waited rather than grabbing her. Selin looked at Caleb. I want to testify, and I'll help build protections around the data. That choice is yours, he said. She took the medic's hand. As they crossed toward the shuttle, the last Veer ships vanished from the upper sky. Human escorts formed a loose line behind her, all facing outward. At the ramp, Selin paused. Far across the dunes, the dead scout drone still smoked beside Caleb's ridiculous little decoy battery. For the first time, she looked at a human shadow stretching across the black sand and did not close her eyes.